So hi, so today I'm going to look at using AI generated coding within the FE sector. So practical look at what's possible, practical and safe. So I think I've seen a fair few people on here before, but if not, so I'm the digital experience design lead here at Bradford College. I have a background in contemporary art, which I was saying if you did see a big basketball on my wall, that's because it's quite an artsy household. But yeah, I think the big thing is that I have no software engineering background, which some people, I suppose, there's different terms going on at the moment, like vibe coding and that, and we're trying to shift away from that. And it's all about how we can create and use coding ethically and smartly and I suppose safely as well within our organizations. So I am learning and development lead here. So I'm in charge of sort of like digital tools created for both staff and students, staff development and teaching and learning within my post. And that's me with a Bradford College Award there as well. So I'm going to talk about how it started, how I got into using different tools, where we are now as a college, what's been developed safely within my organisation, and also the safe usage and sort of buy-in and who to get on board when we're making things like this within our colleges. So how it all began, I imagine now we're all fairly familiar with Canva code. So one of my roles is creating lots of student resources and things like that. And I was really getting into, making all these different types of student activities. So on Canva, for example, we've got these nice things. We can, make these resources, share them out to students. It's even got the thing now as well where we can actually get the data back from what people have clicked as well, which is really useful. And then once I was starting making these and watching the code sort of just come down the side, I just felt, yeah, this is the one. It feels good. And then moving on again. So a lot of the things that I make is sort of self-guided things using ThingLink. I know ThingLink's quite a popular platform at the moment. So these were resources where students would go home. They were self-led resources, so they'd really important resources about sort of like radicalization, safeguarding, prevent duty. And it was really about, okay, how can we make these resources as exciting and interactive as possible? So let me show you this one for a start. So as we'd go through, this would be a slide that a student would go to, and then I still embed a lot of these different Canva ones in there. So we can click on this one. These are all embedded within the sessions. Then I noticed some students were really just clicking off them sometimes. And I guess it has its limitations with like sort of the user interface of it all, how much it really resonates with our students clicking a form. So I was started to explore, okay, how can we then use the similar principles of creating through Canva, but maybe make it a bit more exciting if there's a bit more. Is there more ways that we can make this more engaging for students? And let me show you the first one. So this is kind of what it all kicked off with. So I'll show you the platform in a second, but this is a digital safety simulator that I created for the college. So students would come onto this, they'd scan it on their phones. So I'll give you a second to show that in a second. And then it creates more of this simulation, I suppose, that they'll be more used to. So this was trying to emulate sort of like the Twitch chat or sort of these chat groups that students go into. So part of the session was they go onto this and there's about 20 different questions that they can click, and they've got to decide if they want to block or they want to accept these people based on the outcome. So that's a great example. I will do actually for just a minute, I'll come back to that. If you want to just scan that QR code on your phone, I'll just give you a minute and you can see how it looks on your phone. So as you go through it, you should be able to, it should really reproduce what it looked like to go on somebody's phone and go through this. So if you go onto it and then click start simulation, sometimes there might be a slight cropping issues depending on the size of your phone that I'm still trying to work through at the moment. But it'll give you a good idea of what the app looks like. So if you go onto it, you can click on, it holds the same date that we're on now, time. And again, just these little things that Canva couldn't do. But I thought, you know what, it's a really good use case. to try and emulate that for our students. So I'll leave you with that as you go through. I will continue. So what this is made on. So different apps that are available out there right now. So you've got things like Lovable, Replit, and Base 44. They're probably the big three that I've tested. I'll show you Lovable in a second. So I've used these. I found Lovable is probably the best one, in my opinion, just because I think Replit still is slightly yet less user-friendly. So for people like me who doesn't have that much of a background in coding or design and things like that, it was more sort of like a user-friendly one for us. Claude Code at the bottom, we can go back to that in a bit, but that sort of underpins now how I sort of use these different programs as well. So the dashboard, let me go on to this. Really simple. So if you ever just sign up just to if you've not tried anything like this yet, you've got 5 credits as soon as you sign up, which is usually enough to make you sort of like a small app like mine I've just shown you. So I will, let me sort of go back to this. I'm gonna have to keep going between slides and things. Okay, so the prompt, where it began. So this is my first one 5 months ago. I was really new to it all, so make me a day in the life of a scenario for a student 16 to 18 to show the powers of online grooming. The interface should be how someone may be targeted through their PC, social media, and laptops. Want them to think about what is happening and decide if it's okay or not. This could be a block on accept tool. I want the interface to look like a phone or a laptop, and I'd like a message to ping to say there is a message. Click open, and then it's somebody message and 20 in total. So as a first one, it wasn't ideal what came out, but it was still like, okay, there's something to work with here. So then on reflection, I worked with AI and worked, okay, what was good about this prompt? What was still missing? It came back with a clear purpose, the core mechanic, the format and the scope defined, which is really good. But then also what was missing, there was no specific content, no safe, non-safe, no data constraints, which I'll get onto later on, and then the different states and tones. But again, it wasn't a bad effort. It's what hooked me in. So after that, I sort of refined this just to really start thinking. I suppose this was for me just sort of a check of, okay, what do I need to make it more precise every time? Again, if anybody wants this afterwards, they can scan this link here and you can get the actual prompts, but also I can send these out later on if anybody needs it. So if you have your credits now, if you ever want to load up a Lovable, all you need to do the simulation in here. If you want to use in your colleges, it's a nice little something to leave by today. So what it simulates, and we could just say someone being coerced every time. And then because we've got everything here already, I'll come back to this because it might take about 5 minutes. Actually, I can do a bit of an art attack, and here's the one I prepared earlier. So just from that prompt, it's created us a spot the signs that you'll get 8 messages across social media, Discord, email, and SMS. For each one, decide block or report and accept if it looks fine. Accept, good call. So again, that's there. That's anybody can have that at the end of this. Then once you've got it, you can still do your same iterations on the side here. And you can also, all you need to do then is click publish, and it will publish through Lovable's domain, and then you could have that app existing within that. I will say, as soon as we started making things like this, we got our DPIA in through all the correct people in the college. So our data process manager, I think I'd speak to him through IT and then to them, and then we signed that off, and then that meant that we could use it within our institution. So something I will say about something like Lovable, that's quite a minimal application you can make through it. But people that I've seen even within my college now, they're kind of using it to sort of do everything because it can do a lot, but it's not really, it's not in any way sort of GDPR compliant, ROPA agreed. So it becomes into really dangerous territory. This shouldn't be just because you can do something because you can do something you could. It still needs to go through all these proper channels, which again I suppose needs to be supported by your college policies and all your your college policy essentially. Yeah. So what I'm going to focus on today, we do have things in the college now that do have our own sign-ins and things like that, but I was just going to focus, just for a start, just on things that are session-based. So you open up a browser, you can work on something within the browser, you close the browser, and your data is gone. So great sort of introduction to using this stuff and using it correctly. So something why Lovable instead Canva. So I mean, just from the user experience there, but also on something like Lovable, you can upload your files specifically. You can input screenshots, something that you can't do in Canva. So I just thought it was like the natural step up whilst keeping it still within sort of college policy and safe usage. So no database, no user accounts, and yeah, like I said, it works within the browser. So that's a student version. So something else I'd quite like to show you now is a way that it can be used with staff, still within the browser session. Again, if anybody, so I won't share this, but if anybody thinks, I'd like to have a go at this later on, I'm happy to send on and feel free to exhaust my credits just for a couple of goes so you can see how it works. So something with Lovable, you can use it live. You can have it as a live website, but you can also work and tweak within this as well. So these are just various different things that we've done over time. So this is something that I've created with our initial teacher training teachers. So this is a tool where you can upload 10 minutes of audio. It'll automatically transcribe the audio, and then it'll give the students feedback based on this. We're doing it mainly with teacher training, and as you can see there, if you're a member of staff, it's because they're over 18 years old. Although there's no data, it's not trained on our data, so it uses something called 11 labs that it pulls into, but it still stores data for a certain amount of time. So just to keep everything safe currently at the college, it goes through this. Also, when it does analysis, it'll also remove any names that have come up in the session and things like that as well. So let me show you how it works. Quite exciting. So if we go on something like this, again, really easy if anybody wants to know how to create it. It's just, again, a series of prompts, making the architecture to make sure it works right, and then seeing what it brings out. So we've got something like an audio feature, a deep dive where they can input lesson plans as well, students' work, and then also analyze my own development. So I'll show you an audio feature first. So if I upload something like an audio file, we can also start recording. And what this does, so these were Key Stage 2 teacher trainers, and it was a session on weather conditions. You can choose what categories you'd like comprehensive feedback on, but we'll leave it like this. And all we do is click Get Fast Feedback. So what this is going to do now is this going to send the audio that I've just generated. It's going to send it to 11 Labs, which is a different AI site. It's going to bring back, and then it's going to, within our system, it's going to analyze that. It's probably just worth the wait. These are, again, just at the bottom on the did you knows. These are just after thinking, how can we really max out the sort of user experience within this? I keep saying the word user experience because I've seen people make some things on these and they're just not user friendly at all. So it's sometimes, you've got to think of not just how it works, but how it looks for users as well. Generating lesson feedback. It's funny that you always think AI is taking too long these days, but in reality, you just write feedback out for about 2 hours straight. This has been a working. Go on.
We've got a couple of questions in the chat. We could use it as a quick question.
Yes, go for it. Sorry, I don't even know how to find my questions.
That's all right. I can read the chat.
You go.
So I know you've touched a bit on GDPR and data protection.
Yeah.
Someone has asked, did you worry about GDPR with any of these generators? Maybe you could sort of revisit that.
So yeah, GDPR does keep me up at night, genuinely. I'll show you a form later that what I do for my DPAs, and just to be really clear, with I mean, in theory, if something like this is working, to a great to to a great extent, you've got all your like your row level security in that. Once you've got these sort of big back ends into that, that's kind of your different thing because you're storing data, which is your a different sort of GDPR risk. That's why right now the ones I'm showing now are just working within the client, and then they get removed straight after. But especially if we're moving into things later on, which we're doing at the college now, it really is about uh, data. It's data risk minimization essentially. So are we using full names? Are we using our Microsoft logins and that's giving full identifiers? Are we just giving college emails and things? So it's all that. If you are showing data, how is it properly minimized? Is it not being duplicated? That's a whole host of in itself, which that's why I always think, okay, I go to IT about this, see what they think from a cyber essential side, and then we go to the data protection officer as well. But yeah, it keeps me up at night. So that's why I suppose that's why I've leaned into so many of those just client-based ones, and you can still get really good results out of it. So this would be just one of the sessions that comes in now. So this is all what we've designed, me and the teacher training tutor. So what went well within the session, the teaching practice based on the audio. So how was the question and cognitive challenge developing? And these are all the wordings picked up from the ITT frameworks. And if we go on things like what worked well, if you can hover over your questioning, your engagement, and it kind of really supports our student teachers to what went well and missed opportunities. So it can even say down here at 2:40, a student suggested that Antarctica would be very warm. The teacher acknowledged but deferred addressing the misconception. Really good feedback. And then which ones of the ITT and early careers framework you hit within these sessions. So at the end, like I said, the save for comparison, that is just another print off. So this doesn't save anywhere. So essentially, if you don't download your report, it vanishes. So I have so many staff. So we also have a lesson generator one, and they just say, well, where's it stored now? And just right now, we're taking everything steps slowly, methodically. So we just download reports instead. So if we do that, it will download, and then there you go. I'll show you how, even though it's just a session based, we can still do things like analyze my development. So because we've got the report now, let's go. If I wanted to go through a report and some audio, all I'd need to do is drop my PDF in. I'd drop which one I did, audio file in there. Then again, we can still use this platform, even though it's session based. We can analyze compared to each other. So you can still start mapping things out, even though it's just within one session. And I won't make you wait through that again. I'll show you the second one of this. Then again, so it can even test you against your both journeys. So from the ITT standards, what you hit in your first session, what you hit in your second session. And then all you need to do is just continue keeping these logs that you can reflect from as you go through. So they are just two very quick examples. Again, if anybody does want to meet up and have longer time with me, that's absolutely fine if you ever want to. All open for sharing. Go through. So this is what we've done this one. So the greatest thing about this tool, so obviously there will be other tools around that do this, but we could put in exactly what we wanted to. So like I said, we wanted it based off the ITT framework. We have something called the lead model within our institution, which is how we like people to deliver a session. So launch, establish, apply, develop, demonstrate. And then we can give it all that information through Lovable, and then it will do that based on those standards. And again, this was just a case of uploading. So on the teacher one, for example, I uploaded the Ofsted frameworks, the Ofsted standards, different teaching models, and then it can really pull on that good information. It's all just about giving the AI exactly what you want from it. So I don't work for Lovable, by the way, just the one I use. It keeps saying the cost, it's so great. But for what I do, it's about £20 a month, which gives you 100 credits, plus you get 5 credits a day. So really, it was my New Year's resolution to at least use those 5 free credits a day because they really do add up. Then the payments will go through that. So you get £1 worth of AI credits a month, which sounds like nothing, but AI tokens to actually use are just so cheap. So you actually do get a fair lot out of it. And then as opposed to something where you were going to be self-hosting, you've got to think about where I suppose, your AI credits are coming from. Whereas this kind of does everything within house. It always pulls into Superbase, which is like your back-end platform that's on EU West as well. So that's one of your data compliance things that you have to do, EU hosting, and it's your known data process. So once you have got something like this DPIA in, you can, once you make different sites, a lot of it's already done for you because it's working through the Lovables system that you've already done once as well. And again, you're in control of how much money you put in. So as our department, we just kind of top up as we go. Don't know if we're going to get to the stage of start charging more departments if they're using it more, but you never know. We are thinking eventually moving into full Microsoft platform, but just for now, just because it's within our department, obviously we've only been using it for about 6 months. We're just kind of working out what works here and the limitations, and then do we need to fully migrate it into our Microsoft system? So a big takeaway for me is what I did at the start. So I guess once you can make something so fast, you could give it 6 words. I've made something for Eurovision this weekend, for example, a nice little bingo card. But if you want to make something really fast, you're gonna have more. You're gonna come across more bugs whilst you're adding new buttons throughout the time. And then if you delete them, you might start making these flows that go to nowhere. And then yeah, security becomes an afterthought. But if you really are prescriptive of what you want to do, constrain it where you are, and how you want it to behave, then that's been my sort of biggest learning curve as well. And this is me just promoting sort of this as a beginner to use just sort of like your client side only. And then if you really do want to get your data in, so I've made something for a sustainable development goals within our college. So if we do want to put any forms, if you want to sort of do staff self-assessments and things like that, all you need to do is just embed, say, your Microsoft Forms within that. So you've still got these really nice pages, really nice resources, but then they pull information over. So another thing with GDPR is you're not really supposed to duplicate data. So if it can live in something like your Power Automate, your Power BI dashboards, then it's a lot better for compliance than something like pulling it through, having some data over here, some data over here, and some data over here. And then this is just something I'm reiterating on. The DPI is a planning document, so almost you can say, okay, this is what I want it to do. Then you can go to IT and say, does this work for you? It's a lot. It's a good way of working. And then the dangers, so your back end complexity. So this is where the word term bytecoding is getting a bit unstuck because we're not coders, we're not developers. You may have your API codes, without going into APIs, sort of like leaking on your front end of your sites. You might have the proper security, or people might be able to see any other people's data. And then when we're talking about GDPR breaches, it's all about we're just not storing any sort of student data. But then we can't use things like staff. We can give staff. You can't really do staff assessments in there. So something great, still, harking back to Canva, is now that Canva's got that data. You can get your data from your quizzes and things like that now. So some of our things that we're making are actually, we're embedding Canvas within there and then just pulling the data from Canva instead. And then I think I just mentioned that about the early confidence. If it works in Lovable, doesn't mean it's safe to deploy. And yeah, can create a sense of false readiness because they look so amazing. So it actually makes this possible. So educators with zero coding background can build tools that don't exist. But the question isn't, can I build this? It's, should I, and do I understand what it touches. And I'll just show you when you asked earlier. I can go on to. So these are the sort of specifications now when I'm thinking bigger picture, whether I'm using single sign-on and then to protect things, but also what type of information is going on. So if I can show you this. What type of data is being used? Is it personal category? Is it stored anywhere? And if it's stored in a data point? And then we're just starting to get these overall GDPR risks, which we are sticking for a low to none at the moment, whilst we really get to grips with what we're doing.